Hello guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel or to clicking this video and being on my channel for the first time. My name is Marlene. I talk about my personal eating disorder story, my recovery, and everything related to healing the relationship with your body, your mind, and with food. And I recently got a question, or actually a comment under one of my videos saying that the person really struggled with binge eating and they would watch my videos in order to try to understand how my anorexic brain works so that they could stop binge eating. And so first of all, I really appreciate your honesty. I really appreciate you being on my channel. But I also want to point out that probably looking at someone who used to be anorexic and trying to pick up their habits is not the right way. But I still want to make a video about binge eating because even though I had anorexia, I clearly had phases where I was binging as well. And I'm not talking about extreme hunger because extreme hunger is really different from binge eating. Please don't get that mixed up. So if you're currently in recovery and you're going through extreme hunger, this is not binge eating. So I started my first diet in 2013 when I was 17 years old. And back then those cheat days were very big. So I actually tried every single diet and, I was just desperate to lose some weight, even though I was not quote unquote overweight. We really don't love to look at the BMI or anything like this. So don't get me wrong, please. But I actually never struggled with my weight before until that time in my life where a lot of things family-wise changed. And so I started my first diet. And again, back then, cheat days were very big, which basically mean to eat quote-unquote clean during the week. So clean eating mostly means, for many people, no sugar, little carbs, just whole foods, unprocessed foods, maybe counting calories, maybe restricting carbs at all these kind of things. So it's a very restrictive way of eating, in my opinion. And then you can have a cheat day, which for most people is Sunday, where you can have all the foods you're not allow yourself during the week. And this is the problem, because I remember I used to have those cheat days, and so during the week I always thought that would help me because during the week I could eat clean, and I was okay, I just have to make it through Sunday. I can do this. So it felt like it would actually be helpful for me to keep up with my very restrictive diet during the week. But then on Sundays I would eat everything, and I'm telling you, everything. I would eat so much that my stomach would hurt at night. I remember one day I went out to dinner with my boyfriend and they had buffet, and I just couldn't stop eating because it was my cheat day, and I was I have to take advantage of it because tomorrow's Monday again, and then I'm gonna restrict again. So I have to eat and eat and eat. And I would just lay on the bed and I couldn't move, and it was so bad and I felt so ashamed. And days like this happened to me basically every Sunday. So instead of incorporating a balanced diet where you eat whatever you feel like eating because your body is showing you what to need, you restrict for the week and then you binge on one day. And then you feel bad and ashamed. I used to step on the scale the next morning, which is never a good idea, of course, because first of all, you just have a lot of food in your system. Then you probably also have a lot of water retention because if you starve yourself and then you eat a lot, your body holds back water as well. But I used to do this, and then I was mad at myself. I started crying and I started to restrict even more. And it was the binge restrict cycle that many people actually know. I also want to point out that restriction starts in your brain. So even if you're not actively restricting, for instance, during the week, but if you constantly feel bad about eating certain foods, it's also a form of restriction. The person who commented said they were not quote unquote overweight, and I really don't know enough about you and your habits and your story to analyze it. And it's also not my point to do that, right? But I want you to ask yourself some questions. And the first question is, so the person basically described that they can't just have one slice of bread, but they have to eat the whole loaf of bread. So, and then they have acid reflux and just feel very full. And you didn't mention it, but just from experience, I know that a lot of people also feel ashamed. There is nothing to be ashamed of, but I understand why people feel ashamed because of our society, basically. So I would advise you to basically write down the feelings you have after you have a binge or after you eat so much. If you don't want to call it a binge, that's totally fine, because the definition of binge is very fluid, and for some people this is not a binge. But write it down. Write down your physical uncomfort, your thoughts. Maybe you are ashamed, maybe you feel guilty, maybe you're disappointed. Whatever it is, write it down, because that's where your mental restriction starts. Because then probably I could imagine that you're oh, I can't just have one slice of bread, so I'd rather don't have any bread, because once I start I can't finish. Because that was the case with me. Even when I stopped having those cheat days, I would like sometimes allow myself, you know, like a piece of chocolate. And then I was like, now I started, so I can't stop. So it's like all or nothing, black or white thinking, which is very, very, very common in people with eating disorders. So you either eat the whole loaf or you don't eat at all. And again, it might be different for you, but that's just like my personal experience. And if this is the case, that's actually the point where you have to start attacking your eating disorder or your habits if you want to change them. And Amalia Lee, I referred to her earlier in like some videos because I really think she's an amazing person. She creates a lot of content. She's also a certified recovery coach. And she once said something that I actually wrote down in my book, which is, you have to binge in order to stop binging. And it sounds like very controversial, right? But let me explain. Many people who have binge eating disorders also have restrictive phases. And even, unfortunately, if you go to the doctors or if you go to therapists, I recently talked to a friend of mine who suffers from binges, and he said he was like in many clinics in his life because of his depression and other things, but the binging was also like always part of his life, right? So whenever he brought that up, especially because he's in a larger body, people would actually, and especially the therapists would actually make meal plans for him, which is the worst thing you can do. And I get it, people think you just need more structure, more control. So if you have a meal plan and you have like 3 meals a day, you won't binge anymore. But this is not the case, because people don't understand that it starts in your brain, that it's a mental restriction. And if you have those meal plans, it's even more of a mental restriction, because then you have like 3 plans and it's not intuitive at all, because our bodies don't just work with meal plans. You can't just have like 3 meals a day and like even the same meals every day, which is even worse, because sometimes your body craves something different, and that's more than fine. But in order to get there, in order to get to a point where you can eat intuitively, in a way you can allow yourself to eat what your body is craving and then also stop once you're full, in order to do that, you might have to let yourself binge without any restrictions. And this might be one of the hardest things you've ever done, because there's a lot of uncomfort. It will feel very wrong, because if you react to binges with restriction, that's your coping mechanism, right? So a lot of people actually binge, and then the next day they work out more, they move more, they eat little, they skip meals, and so they feel better about their binge because they are like, now I'm making up for what I ate yesterday. But this is not how it works. The actual way to fight binging is actually to continue your day without any kind of restriction, without over exercising. And if that means that you will have more binges, so it is. Because once you fully give in, you might have like weeks and weeks of binging, and it's going to be extremely uncomfortable, and it's going to feel wrong, and you're going to be like, shit, why am I doing this? I'm going in the other direction. But I promise you, if you really give in and you stop your mental and physical restriction, and you stop shaming yourself, because every time after a binge you shame yourself, you guilt yourself into restricting again, or even if you don't restrict, but even if you talk badly about yourself and being like, oh my god, I couldn't behave myself, I was eating too much again, like all those things also have a very big impact. But once you stop doing that and do my favorite term, radical acceptance, and accept that you have to binge as long as you have the urge to binge, I promise you, over time it will get less and less and less. And yes, there are many like quote-unquote professionals out there who don't understand it, and this is also like just my personal experience and my personal view on things. If I look at the science, if I look at scientific backgrounds of eating disorders, I'm not a medical professional, so this is just a little disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. These are just like my personal experiences and the experiences I heard from other people who suffered from binge eating as well, and who were able to heal their binge eating. So for the person who like did the comment, if you want to let me know in the comments if that was helpful for you. Also, maybe I saw it wrong, because again, I don't know the background of your story. And for everyone else, I would love to hear your experiences. Maybe you suffered from the binge restrict circle as well. Maybe you've been through something else. So let me know. And if you have any other suggestions or questions for more content, let me know as well. And I will see you guys in the next one.